Welcome back to Sit Down Startup Podcast. I'm Pedro.
And I'm Tara. Thanks for listening in and subscribing to our podcast. We promise to keep bringing you stories of fascinating startups navigating the changing tides of 2020. You'll see that our guests continue to drive growth and innovation while putting customer experience at the heart of their success. And that only helps as startups build for a new future.
As our world goes topsy-turvy, we will bring inspirational stories of makers building their business in their living room like the good old scrappy days. Our leaders will discuss how to acquire new customers, deliver empathy in your communication, and how products can impact the overall experience.
Our next guest is Sophia Baik, co-founder at CodeSignal. Sophia didn't set out to start a company, as you'll soon hear. Still, in 2015, she and her co-founder launched a technical skills assessment platform called CodeSignal. They take the bias out of hiring for technical roles like engineering and more, helping recruiters with hiring objectivity. But CodeSignal didn't start out as CodeSignal, and Sophia tells that story beautifully.
We brought in Ryan Nichols, who is an executive in residence at Zendesk, to help Sophia tell the story. Ryan is a serial entrepreneur and active member of the startup ecosystem. He spent his time advising and mentoring founders of early-stage SaaS companies while supporting Zendesk's biggest ambition of disrupting the telephony industry. He hired many engineers across his ventures in startup land. I can guarantee you this will be a fascinating conversation that will open your eyes when hiring your employees. Are you ready? Let's sit down and start up.
So here we are, Sophia, sitting down, having a virtual coffee. So I have to ask, how do you enjoy your coffee?
I like pour over usually, just clean, nothing added, just Chemex usually. How about you? What's your favorite drink?
Well, I'm a pour over person myself. I tell you, it was a crisis in my house when we ran out of Chemex filters during shelter in place. So thank goodness that has resolved. The pour overs can continue, but nothing better than a good pour over. Well, Sophia, we heard your bio, very impressive background. I'd love to hear just a little bit more about yourself and your journey to found CodeSignal.
Yeah, so I kind of have a roundabout way. I didn't necessarily start out in my college dorm where I'm gonna start my own startup anything. I first started my career in finance, in investment banking, and I actually covered the technology sector. Technology sector was something that I've always been interested in, so that was my part. And then I realized I really want to be involved in at the operational level than just meeting the companies when they need to raise funding or go public and so on. So I made my kind of a way through actually going to the business school and then joining a technology company. And then from there, I think I kind of went to a smaller company, and then I ended up meeting my co-founder, Tigran in Aram, and kind of join the forces there. And I think what really big thing that resonated with me in terms of what they were already working on was that it was trying to kind of make the entire engineering hiring process much more about skills rather than pedigree or resume or whatever background or schools you happen to have on your resume. And
because I was just going to say, Sophia, like based on that background, there's so many parallels with my own personal story, right? Like liberal arts, business school, I did consulting instead of banking before moving into technology. But clearly, like you would hire me and I would hire you just based on those parallels in our resume. But that's actually a pretty big problem, isn't it?
It is. And I don't know whether you had a similar experience breaking into management consulting, but for me, it was no big banks were coming to my school to recruit anyone. So it was really, and everybody also asked for, I want to see a previous finance experience on your resume. And then I was like, I'm trying to get my first internship and you're asking me for, experience. I don't have it, right? So everybody needs to start somewhere to get that on their resumes, but it's currently I think people are basing off of if you went to good school, then I want to give you a chance, versus if you didn't go to good school, then we're not going to give you a chance. Then like one cannot start the career there. So yeah, I think that's definitely something.
And how does CodeSignal change that?
Yeah, so the big part is I think the software engineering hiring was actually a good place to start, because it's a type of a job that requires hard skills, and hard skills are easier to measure, right? I mean, our customers, often ask us like, oh, do you have a assessment for other jobs like marketing or sales and so on? Maybe in the future we'll get there, but starting with the software engineering hiring, I think, you can, if you can start measure skills at a large scale and in an objective way, then now you have a better alternative to those resumes, right? So I think CodeSignal enables the recruiters and hiring managers to really be able to put it into their day-to-day process, because it's as easy or even easier to use skills data through CodeSignal than trying to comb through resumes and do the keyword search and so on. So I think having very accurate data on someone's skill level is easily available to you. I think that was the kind of the game changer. I think in the past, companies try to have this skill assessment step so that they really get to know the candidates, but it was kind of done manually, right? So you create a test on your own, which is its own bias and compliance issue, but you create a test, send it to the candidate, they complete it, and then it has to go back to somebody in the technical team to review. And that can also introduce a lot of bias, because if you're reviewing things manually, but you can only do that for so many candidates, right? So you cannot do that at the very beginning of the process, which is where most of the kind of a bias-driven, resume-driven screening is happening. Like you do that at the very kind of end of the process. By that point, people are all screened out. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Now this is, I love that. But CodeSignal wasn't always CodeSignal, right? You all started in a slightly different direction.
Yeah, and so we started as a code fight, where it was like a place for programmers to come and practice their skills and learn through the community. So think about it as like a Candy Crush saga, like where you get to solve a problem and then you level up, then you can open new question, and you can also use the forum to talk to others and learn from others. And we had because we had a data on everybody's skill level, because like if you are good, then you can reach the farther stage in that progress. We were offering the service of matching that particular programmer to employers, because what we found is that there are so many talented engineers, and like they don't even have a computer science degree, they don't even have a formal education in programming, but they are very talented. And I think it's also the type of a job like you actually learn by doing things more than like in the classroom anyway. So that was kind of our business model, where we introduced talented candidates to the customers based on the data we have about their achievement on our platform. And then we start hearing from our customers that they want to actually like know this skill data, not only from the candidates, a small group of candidates that we are introducing, but for all of their candidates who are applying to them. So that's when we decided, we already have the technology. Can we actually empower our recruiters to be able to gather those skills data? So that's when we pivoted into CodeSignal and so on.
Makes sense. Well, the Candy Crush analogy, I've never wasted any time on that game, so that analogy really doesn't work for me at all. I don't understand that. But I do love, Sophia, how like that pivot was a result of following your customers and listening to your customers, which is, I guess what this is all about. And now, of course, you're working with such an incredible set of customers, right? Uber, Robinhood, Square, Postmates, Tell us about your work for those companies. Like, how does CodeSignal help them with their hiring?
Yeah, so I think there are several kind of ways that we help our customers. I think the first of all is kind of a lot of these companies have they are technology companies, so hiring very high caliber software engineers is really critical to their success and growth. So we really kind of enable their technical recruiters to focus on skill. So what that means is that when candidate applies to their job, then they can present their skill data to the recruiter so that if you meet certain threshold on the technical skill set, then you move fast track to the next round of an interview so that you can quickly focus on qualified candidates rather than spending time with everyone in the same way and kind of losing some of the most talented people. So I think the efficiency that we bring in, because we zoom in on skills from the very early stage of the process, that's I think one big thing. I think the second part is also putting this skills assessment at the very top of the funnel means now you can actually afford to assess a lot more candidates than you would have. So what that enabled our customers to do is actually give a chance to everyone and anyone. Instead of, we only have time to talk to this many candidates because it's an automated assessment process. So what we've heard is our customers were able to find candidates who they would have never considered beforehand. And also from the underprivileged groups, like underrepresented groups, like if maybe they didn't have college degrees and they would not have passed the resume round, but because now they show a clear skill level and demonstrated a quality, now they want to have an interview, and nobody has to waste their time on trying to kind of see who's good and who's not good in that sense. It's already pre-filtered in that way.
Wow.
And then I think, yeah.
Well, just 2020 just feels like the year the world needs CodeSignal, right? But in part for that reason, right? Where the role you play in helping companies that like Zendesk, right, are very serious about our efforts to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, so much of the systematic racism in the system lives in what is a traditional hiring process. And I think it's really interesting to break the role that you can play in breaking through that, in changing that. What's the expression? I love it. It's a nonprofit that you are involved in, right?
Yeah. So we have a kind of a sister movement that's going on. It's called Go Beyond Resumes, and that's what we realize is that we do our part as a company for software engineering hiring process, but I think there is a lot bigger kind of a cultural shift that needs to take place, right? So this is a movement for any hiring. Like, let's think about what are we really trying to look for in our ideal candidates, and think beyond resumes to find that specific skill set, qualifications, or potentials to be at the center of the hiring process rather than simple kind of a resume part. Because I think someone mentioned how skills are evenly distributed, but opportunities are not. And I think we tend to gravitate towards people who already have had the right opportunity, either going to very prestigious schools or having worked at a very well-known companies. But everybody needs to start somewhere, and if we can give the opportunities to more people in a more equitable way, I think that's a start. So there is that movement that we are supporting and being part of. Yeah,
go beyond the resume. I love it. Of course, the other reason that it feels like 2020 is the year that world needs CodeSignal is that it's one thing to try to make some of these changes to your hiring process in last year's world, where we were doing in-person interviews and spending a lot of time in person with each other. And of course, as companies respond to the COVID-19 process and figure out how they can continue to hire and grow in this new moment. Of course, CodeSignal plays a role in that as well, right? With remote hiring. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. And I think that's becoming more and more of a focus for our customers' needs, right? So that with the COVID-19, everybody is kind of working from home and shelter in place. So what that means is that all this on-site, sort of called, where you invite your candidate to come to the office physically and conduct a series of interviews, that needs to go virtual to the virtual world. So we already had a product, CodeSignal Interview, that was the remote interviewing tools, and those were usually used actually like as the last step before on-site interview in pre-COVID world, but now that's actually becoming the tool for the entire on-site interview process. And after this shelter in place went into effect, we heard from many existing customers as well as prospective customers about that. And the big things that they mentioned is like, how can I create a candidate experience that's equivalent to having them on site and meeting them in person, right? Because people still need to make that connection, to make a big decision, like I want to work at this company or not. The second part was some of the typical on-site interview process included a whiteboarding session in technical hiring.
You always hop up on the whiteboard, right? That's how do you get around that?
Yeah. So a lot of our customers have asked us to, can you solve this problem for us? We need to have a whiteboarding as a part of the technical interview. And so we actually, as a startup, we moved pretty fast, and we kind of the leadership got together and then mentioned that this has to be our priority to support our customers, because this is the big problem that they are facing right now. So we were able to quickly launch our virtual whiteboarding tools, and we've also just updated, take it to the next level already as of this week. So that experience has become much bigger. So for example, now you can not only code in the collaborative editing tool during the interview process, but you can also open up a whiteboard and then draw diagrams to explain your system architecture that you are trying to explain to the interviewer. And things like we've also enabled our video conferencing to be not just a little thumbnail, but the entire full screen experience, because there is a portion during the whole on-site interview where you just get to know each other as people and talk instead of actually writing a code or drawing things, right? So those are some of the changes that from the product side as well as customer success side that we've really brought in, because customers have told us that they need these features and experiences.
Well, and anytime there's so much change, right? The only following your customers through that change is the only thing that informs your roadmap and what's important. And I think it's a great example of CodeSignal doing that. What do you think, Sophia? Is this the new normal? What happens after we technically don't need to be doing, right now there's no choice, right? This is the only way to be doing interviews. That's going to change, right? What does the new normal look like, do you think?
Yeah, what we are seeing in the industry is that it's probably going to stay and really change fundamentally how we think about not only interviewing someone, but also where we hire people, right? Because now everyone has worked in the remote setting as a team, and now people know that it's not as scary as it sounded like, and maybe some people prefers it that way, more for safety reason or other personal reasons and so on. So what we are seeing is that it's not only that people are conducting and will continue to conduct their final stage on-site interviews online or virtually or remotely, but also they are opening jobs that's fully remote positions. And I think what that also does is actually a great outcome of this whole shift, which is now you don't have to actually limit yourself to candidates who are available in certain geographic location or who are willing to relocate to that geographic location, but really open up your candidate pool to anywhere in the world, right? So now you can focus on hiring the most talented, the most qualified candidates from anywhere in the world, rather than either you have to be already here or you're willing to relocate to this location, which I think limits the choices, and also it brings up the competition even more.
So you and I are both in the San Francisco Bay Area. What do you think that trend means for places like this that have really banked on that importance of proximity and location as really what's been fueling all the growth and change in the Bay Area? What happens to places like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I hear things like the rental prices in the San Francisco area has been actually going down already, because now people choose to move out of the Bay Area to live but still have the option to either continue to work for the same employer or finding new opportunities. So yeah, I think we will see some changes in terms of maybe I think the companies who are having headquarters in the Bay Area will continue to have. I think there is also advantages of being in the ecosystem where you're exposed to new technology and innovation fast and being facilitated. But I think more and more companies will start having the option of working remotely or hiring remotely going forward. And I mean, that's kind of that's why we actually also started our company in the Bay Area, because we get to be very close to our potential customers and be in the kind of the force of momentum of the new change and new initiatives and innovation that's happening. And but I mean, that's kind of also our vision. Like currently we are small, so we want to focus on serving our customer segment, who are the technology companies based in the Bay Area. But our goal is to not just like stopping here, but really any company who are hiring engineers can hopefully see the value of CodeSignal and be able to really put skills at the center of their hiring process. And these days, everybody hires software engineer, right? From the brick and mortar companies to traditional, financial firms, or regardless of the sector. So that's really the hope.
Well, it's a massive market with massive change. It's so exciting, such an exciting opportunity. What's next for CodeSignal?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, being able to serve our core customer group well, and then kind of going beyond that is one. I think the other one is, I mean, we really want to make sure. I think we have one of the most kind of technically solid product out there and solution out there to really support our customers in this time of transition and change, right? So we are continuing to put a lot of efforts in making sure that we deliver on those customers' expectations to enable a seamless and effective interviewing experience, although they are doing it remotely. So perfecting that and making sure that a lot of our customers can really benefit from that would be the key focus at least for the next year and so on.
Well, it's exciting times, and I look forward to keeping tabs on CodeSignal, on your own journey, Sophia, and hey, hopefully grabbing a real pour over one of these days. Although I have to say, on a hot afternoon, I've got a nice cold brew soaking right now that I probably need to go check on. So thank you for taking this time to chat. It was really good to have this conversation.
Yeah, same here. Really nice to meet you virtually, and hopefully we'll get together another time in person.
Thanks for joining us, Sophia. It was a fantastic conversation, extremely relevant for the current times we are living. I really enjoy hearing that by listening to their customers, CodeSignal pivot the company business, positioning them to solve a very urgent issue that we face in the tech industry. The lack of diversity among engineers and other employees that tech companies hire. As we keep learning, unconscious bias is a serious issue that can damage the long-term culture of your startup. Putting your efforts since day one to bridge that gap will make a significant impact on the future of your business. Thanks for building software that focuses less on pedigree and more on skills. Please keep going with the Beyond Resume movement. I'm a fan.
I couldn't agree more, Pedro, and Ryan said it best. The world needs CodeSignal now more than ever. One of my takeaways of this conversation was that great customer experience starts inside the company. Leaders need to focus on building a great experience for their talent, starting with how they hire. I also love how CodeSignal puts skills at the center of their hiring process, really changing the mindset of how most tech companies do their recruiting strategy today. I can't wait to hear what's next for CodeSignal. Maybe they can expand to help our customers hire the best-in-class customer support professionals. Wink, wink.
And if you like this episode, tune in next with Magnus Peterson, COO at Mindler, one of the fastest growing Swedish startups. And don't forget to rate us on your podcast of choice, subscribe and share. It's summertime, give yourself a Zoom break.
And when Pedro and I are not recording this podcast, we are part of Zendesk for Startups. If you're a startup, go to www.zendesk.com/startups and sign up to join our program.
Qualified companies get 6 months free of Zendesk software for customer support, sales, and customer engagement teams.
They also get connected with our exclusive community of leaders and partners who are changing the landscape of customers' experiences. Talk to you next time.
Stay hungry.